welcome into our rookie review, the part one of the running backs that we're looking at. And today we're going to look at eight running backs, or talk about eight running backs, just kind of a surface level introduction to these guys you should be listening to, paying attention for Dynasty purposes. It is January 25th. So, the championship round of the playoffs is still happening. Senior Bowl is going to be happening soon, right, Dad? I mean, isn't that around this time?
Yeah, it's the week before. Holy crap! It could be next week. I think the week before the week break in the Super Bowl. That's when I think the Senior Bowl. I'll see. Yeah, it's a good idea. It depends on how deep you're into this. This is pretty deep stuff. If you just get a roster and it's available, and kind of wait until the week of the Senior Bowl and get a Senior Bowl roster, and then just kind of hold on to it till later. You can see where these guys are drafted at and things like that, who played in the Super Bowl, and just kind of try to pay attention. Who does well and things like that. You'll hear a lot about offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and that they get to match up with kind of their guys that they're the same talent level as them. So, but just a suggestion. I know that's pretty deep for fantasy football, but hey, if you want to win, your dynasty draft, you're only going to be able to draft 4 or 5 guys, maybe you're lucky and get more. So, make a few of those guys hit, make them count. That's why you're watching this video. So,
yeah, it goes a long way. If you can, the top 7, 8, 10 guys, whatever, everyone knows those guys. It's the second, third round, fourth round guys. And are you going to hit on all of them? No. You hit on one of them, like a Puka, like a Tank Dell.
That's all it takes. It's just one of those guys to help you, help your team.
Yep. Yeah, I looked it up while you were talking. The Senior Bowl is February 3rd, Saturday, February 3rd. So that's the weekend before Super Bowl. And then there's the East-West Shrine Game is another one. That's the Thursday, the 1st. So a week from today. So, you're going to hear names. Combine stuff's going to be starting up, and things are going to be falling into place a little bit. In terms of these running backs, they're an interesting group for sure. Not as deep or not as top heavy as last year. When I was watching these guys, I found it kind of hard to distinguish, like, all right, this is the number one guy. This is the Bijan of the class, because there really isn't. There's no Bijan, Gibbs, even a Charbonnet or Achane, where it's very clear that these guys are in a tier, and then there's a next tier. To me, consensus seems to be pretty similar to top 4. Jonathan Brooks from Texas, Trey Benson from Florida State, Blake Corum from Michigan, and Bucky Irvin from Oregon seem to be in a lot of people's top 4, a lot of people who rank stuff. And then from there, it gets a little crazy. And even that top 4, I've seen Trey Benson number 1, I've seen Corum number 1, I've seen Brooks number 1. So there's no consensus for sure. We're going to kick it off with Jonathan Brooks from Texas. Something to note before we get into it, he did tear his ACL in mid-November, November 12th, that weekend of college football. So he's probably not going to be testing. You're not going to hear about his name and things like that. But that could be a good thing in for us who are paying attention now, because I think he's actually a pretty good running back. Dad, what were your thoughts on Jonathan Brooks?
Yeah, he's only 20 years old, so that's pretty young coming out of school. I'm sure he'll turn 21 here soon. Good running back. Had rushed for over 1,000 yards in the number of games that he played. Yep. So he was getting good carries, good usage there at Texas, and he did sit behind Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson, 2 names that we're very familiar with for 2 years. So this was his year, and unfortunately, ACL tear in November, that kind of sets him back. This is a guy I personally will be watching to see, is he going to get drafted? Drafted in the, 5th round, 6th round. So he probably isn't going to play much in the NFL next year. But but you never know, weirder things happen. One good thing I did see about him was he's a good pass catcher. That's what I
Mhm.
noticed about most of these guys. That they all can catch the pass. They all look very fluid in catching it and stuff like that. Now their
Yep.
numbers aren't off the charts, and as far as like Blake Corum of Michigan didn't catch the ball, but when it came time to throw him the ball, and he looked like he knew what he's doing. So that's something to watch at the combine when they do
Mhm.
pass catching drills, with the running backs, and just watch. Do they look like, do the guys look fluid? Do they got good hands? Do they got good technique and stuff like
Mhm.
that? I mean, none of us are scouts, but we certainly can say, hey, he looks pretty good, or no, that one doesn't. But anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah, no, for sure. I liked he reminded me a lot of like how Le'Veon Bell would run the ball, just like super patient behind the line, waiting for that hole to open up and hit in the hole, and kind of having good vision for it. So, those of you who remember Le'Veon Bell, he was always kind of, it seems like he was almost like walking behind the line until that hole opened up and then hit the hole. He doesn't have like this amazing burst or top end speed is pretty good, decent moves and things like that. He's just an overall a pretty good running back. So I agree. I think he's one to pay attention to. He could fall in the draft. He could fall in the Dynasty rookie draft, and you could scoop him up maybe in the, I don't know where, but in the third round or something, depending on where he goes, and you could have maybe the best back in this draft when we're looking back at it in 2 years or 3 years. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, you're not going to see him testing at the combine, and I imagine, I don't know, it's going to be cutting it close with if he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not. So um, interesting one there. I kind of listed him as like my number 2 guy on this list of 8 that we're looking at. Um, Actually, number 1 is for me is this next guy is Trey Benson from Florida State. Bigger back here. Trey Benson is, I think he's like 220. Is just double checking that. 6'1", 220 is what I see. You'll see different numbers everywhere until the combine, but he was very intriguing to me. Really good speed. He was more explosive than Jonathan Brooks if we're comparing the two. He can catch pretty well, and he's just one of those bigger backs. Doesn't go down very easily. He had some good numbers in college. So, Dad, what did you think of Trey Benson from Florida State?
Yeah, he actually started off at Oregon, so and then he transferred to Florida State. And you're going to see that's not a negative nowadays. You'll see that with a number of guys. They'll start somewhere and figure out this is not my spot. But yeah, bigger back. Florida State, they up until their bowl game they were undefeated, and they relied on this guy quite a bit, and he was pretty good. And like you said, he's a bigger guy, and he was kind of reminded me of a of a Big Ten back, more of a bruiser, and between the tackles and things like that. So he was a good. He was a good looking guy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. He has that bruising ability, and he also has some good burst, I think, some good speed and stuff. So that combination is always intriguing because you got to think about how coaches are going to approach things. And we're going to talk about that with a couple guys here where do they think they can trust him to be an every down type of a running back, which there's not many of those these days anymore. But you want to see either you can be an every down guy or you're very explosive and you can make the most out of limited touches. So yeah, both those guys, Brooks and Benson, for me are kind of in probably my 1-2 right now. Benson, Brooks. Obviously, again, it's late January, so things are going to change. But the next guy is Blake Corum from Michigan. Dad, a guy you're very familiar with, put up huge numbers. Obviously, Michigan is a very run first, run heavy, power run scheme team. And so he has the numbers, obviously, over 250 carries, caught the ball when he needed to, but that's just not part of what they asked their running backs to do. Just to me, it's just an overall solid running back, like maybe he doesn't jump off the screen, and I'll definitely be watching more and stuff, but maybe he doesn't jump off the screen like, oh my God, look at all these moves, but he can just be like a solid running back, which is very valuable to teams in the NFL for sure. What are your thoughts on Corum? Where would you rank them in compared to Brooks and Benson?
Well, I think they're all kind of close. So, I broke it into the groups of four, and then first four and then second four. But Blake Corum, of course, I'm a Michigan fan, and I watch this guy play every game. So he's I like his dimensions. He's 5'8", he's 213 pounds,
yep.
And you think, well, geez, he's short. That's the way you want running backs built. You don't want them 6'1" and they take more hits and more shots. So 5'8" is good size for a running back. I think Barry Sanders was like 5'9" and stuff like that. So this guy Blake Corum, he's powerful. He's he squats. I don't know the weight. I heard like 600 pounds at one time. Mm-hmm. He's got huge thighs. I did find a 40 speed, but we'll talk about the 40 later. Oh, he carried the ball a lot at Michigan, especially in 2022 and 2023. Over almost 250 times. That's a lot of
500
carries. Yeah,
500 over those 2 years. Yeah, what was the 40 time you said in the low?
Well, I'd seen it on Wikipedia at 4.4.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a high school or a freshman high school time or a freshman time or.
Yeah, and the other two guys we talked about, Trey Benson, I think I've heard in the high 4.3s actually for Trey Benson, which is kind of crazy if he does run that, because he's, again, a back that weighs like 220.
That's really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jonathan Brooks, I've seen in like the mid 4.4s. You want anywhere from low 4.5s to, below, right? You can get away. I mean, freaking Kyron Williams was awesome. He ran like a 4.6. So you just never really know. And sometimes they look better in pads, right? They're running in underwear at the combine where, that's not what they do in the game. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Don't discount a running back just because they're running 4.5s or 4.6 or even, near 4.6 and stuff. So, and that's it. You explained it exactly. And of course, breakaway speed and stuff like that. That's all important. But honestly, we don't see a lot of NFL running backs, breaking away for huge, 60, 70 yard runs to the house. Like we do. I think we see more in college is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Blake Corum, he scored, I think like 58 touchdowns. So
yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. So he's definitely got a nose for the goal line and stuff like that. And he even did catch, I think in his career, I have it written down, 56 receptions in a career. So in 4 years, he did have a knee injury in 2022. And he had some surgery. They never came out and said, it was this or that, or, but he was ready for 2023 and, there was no problem. So
that's a good point, because his 2022 numbers did look better. Rush, basically the same amount of rush attempts, essentially 10 less, 11 less, but he ran for like 200 yards more in 2022, just more efficient, almost 6 yards a carry. And we know guys coming off of, if it was an ACL, the first year back, they don't look completely right. So this was his first year back, but yeah,
I'm not sure it was an ACL though, to tell you the truth,
Okay.
but I'd be shocked because he was ready at the beginning of the year, and he got injured in November of 2022. So
yeah. And just the last note on that 40-yard stuff. If Derrick Henry ran a 4.54, how many freaking times did he bust off 60-yard runs and outrun everyone once they get going? You know, so.
By the way, Derrick Henry was dunking basketballs in 6th grade.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, and then the last guy that I think is going to round out like the top 4 as of now is Bucky Irving from Oregon. A smaller guy, doesn't play that way though. We kind of saw that last year with guys like
I like this guy.
Yeah, me too. He's like doesn't go down on first contact. I've seen he's listed around 200. I've seen 190. You know, he's one of these smaller guys, but man, he just produces. He runs between the tackles. You know, he went to Oregon. He's pretty. He's a good acceleration, really good moves. He's a pretty good pass catcher. Nothing amazing, but you know, he can take dump offs and screen passes, no problem.
Well, he caught 56 passes last year, so
yeah. And Oregon's offense was very dink and dunk, so that played into it a little bit. So yeah, he can be one of those guys. Yeah, go ahead, Dad. You said you really like him because
you just nailed all the things that you know. I actually had to take notes because I wasn't going to remember. You know, after watching some of these guys, you know, on video and getting ready for this, that and I just said does not go down easy, and you know, and I like this pass catching ability, you know. And I think it's a thing of the past where they used to worry about running backs and catching the pass or run heavy teams. But this guy was a big focal point of Oregon's offense. And Oregon was a good college football team. So, yeah, and he, even though he's not a bigger guy, I mean, 200 pounds or 195, that's not bad for a running back. But you'd like him a little thicker. But he just he was like a plow horse, man. You know, I really liked Bucky Irving.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. And you know, the big thing with these guys, as I look up estimated 40 time is mid 4.4 seems right. Seems faster than that in pads, to be honest. But you know, always the biggest concern with these guys is a team. Does he go to the right team? Do they think he can be a main, you know, workhorse, but not even a workhorse, but will they give him 15 touches, or are we going to see them more like how they treated like a Keaton Mitchell, the Ravens did, where they're giving him, you know, 8 carries and 3 catches, and it's going to be tough to really make a difference with that unless you're super efficient, which I think a guy like Bucky Irving can be. But yeah, that's always going to be the concern with these guys is the team going to buy into like, okay, this is my main running back. I'm going to give him, you know, 200 carries and 60 targets or something. So, but I'd say these top 4 guys, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Corum, and Bucky Irving, seem to be the consensus top 4. And I'd kind of agree with them. From what I saw, I kind of like these guys in my top 4 here. So you kind of agree, Dad? Those are kind of like the top 4 as of now.
I like the next guy too. So after that, I think there was a little bit of a drop off. So I mean, Estime from Notre Dame.
Yeah, go ahead. You can start on it. Yeah, Audric Estime from Notre Dame. You can start on him.
Yeah, you talking about a big boy. He's 230 pounds, 5'11", 230 pounds, and he ran that way too. And he had over 1,300 yards and last year. So Notre Dame, and he was a tough guy. So he even had 26 receptions, so they fed him a lot at Notre Dame. So does he, you know I said I like the guy and stuff like that, Does he have a role in an NFL offense somewhere? Yeah, he might. And I think you just explain it. These rookies. We know there is no bell cow rookie
Mhm.
anymore. I doubt if that's going to happen. I mean, just look at Jahmyr Gibbs. If he had 15 carries in a game, that was a lot. So,
Mhm.
but Estime seems, yeah, just a big guy. I like some of that old fashioned football and
Mhm.
stuff. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because he's probably the most consistently ranked as like the fifth guy out of these running backs, and I don't know. I wasn't. I understand why people would like him. That like you said, that big running back, that no nonsense north south runner, and teams are definitely going to value that, and he's going to have a role on a team. It's just how good is it going to be for fantasy if he's not the bell cow, like you said. Like if he's getting 20 carries, yeah, he's going to be good. I don't know if he's super explosive, if he's going to be super. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like an AJ Dillon type, like where unless you got a couple touchdowns from AJ Dillon, you probably weren't happy fantasy wise.
yeah,
Could that happen? Maybe, right? But
yeah, and AJ Dillon, that's a good comp, by the way, good comparison, and that'll probably and AJ Dillon, he had his chances as a you know to try to impact the fantasy world a little more, and he just we seen his what do we want to call it? We seen his high water mark,
mhm.
and like you said, and this guy Estime out of Notre Dame, he could be similar. He could be a number. He can end up being a number two running back on a team and stuff like that, and getting you know 8 carries or 10 carries, but that might be as much as you're going to get out of them or something.
Yeah,
And we're just speculating here, so we have to
mhm.
see where these guys are drafted, where they're going to fit. And I know dynasty drafts. They're usually what, May and June, so you're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah,
Soon.
yeah. And if he does run, like I've seen him speculated as like mid to low 4.4. So if he does run something like that, I was never a big like, for example, like a Brian Robinson fan. Just thought he was kind of one of these backs. But then a team liked him, and a team said, "This is our guy." And then the Washington Commanders, and they said, "We're gonna feed him." And look at what he did. He produced in terms of fantasy. Like he was good there for a while last year because the team said, "You know what? He is our guy. We think he can catch 40 balls and get 200 carries and stuff like that." So it just takes one team to kind of fall in love with them, and these guys can definitely be relevant. Um, Next guy, talking about big guys, Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin.
This
Man, this
is
guy is huge.
Yeah,
6'2", 245 is what I'm seeing.
yeah,
He could probably afford to lose a little bit of weight, but um, everyone's going to make the comp to Derrick Henry, and I understand because of the size. I think he makes up for like where Derrick Henry's weak. Actually, Braylon Allen's pretty good. Like he's kind of shifty. And he's a very natural like pass catcher. He has moves, whereas Henry is kind of, he's a little bit more lumbering. He needs to, he breaks that tackle and gets going. Whereas Braylon Allen they're different backs to me. So, yeah, what did you think of Braylon Allen
yeah.
from
This is a
Wisconsin?
typical Wisconsin running back. This is the game. That the path they want to follow on big running backs. There was guys like Ron Dane, and I know I'm missing somebody here recently that was. And okay, so anyway, so he played there 3 years. They ran the hell out of him, So
Mhm.
he, go back to 21. He's at 1,260 yards, 2022, 1242, 984 last year, and a lot of carries and a lot of usage and stuff like that. He did, for like you said, for a big guy he is, he did look a little more fluid. it wasn't just give him the ball and just plow straight ahead. There was some running back talent there, of movement and things like that. He can catch the pass too. So, but he, we'll see. They'll probably ask him. They'll be interesting. We know he's in the 240s. It'll be interesting to see what his weight is at the NFL Combine. He's had since, a lot of these guys, they got December, January, and February to get rid of or to prepare for the Combine and stuff like that, and work with their coaches and the guys they hire and stuff like that. So no shortage of usage or game tape, and some games it was just like Allen left, Allen right, this, and just hand the ball off to him. So
yeah, and Wisconsin's not known for throwing to running backs. He caught 28 balls. Like, I think he's a pretty good pass catcher too, and he's built to block, pass block. Like, I don't know, he has a good chance at being an every down guy. He's very intriguing in my opinion. I know people were very high on him going into the year, and maybe he didn't meet expectations that we had. But what's crazy about him is he just turned 20 5 days ago. So he was playing as a 19-year-old. He was playing as a 17-year-old, I guess, in 2021.
Jeez.
And he was the guy. He had 186 carries to almost 1,300 yards.
Right from the beginning, they fed him the ball.
Yeah. So teams are going to like that too, like that he's only 20 years old. That's very nice for a running back. As we know, they fall off the cliff for a while. So if you can get a guy who's only 20, that's a plus. So it's going to be very interesting. I can see him being very highly taken. I can see him falling maybe if he doesn't test very well. It would be very interesting to see where he goes. A guy I'm very intrigued to see as this process moves along. Two more guys for you. Will Shipley from Clemson. Another interesting one here. Seems to be projected. I feel like I've been hearing this guy's name for a while. He's played only 3 years, which is long. He can catch the ball. He's kind of like that. He's kind of that hybrid. I saw him kind of line up a receiver and take a deep pass and things like that. But he's not just a pass catcher. He had 167 carries, over 200 carries in 2022. What do you think of Will Shipley in terms of like his role in the NFL?
Well, it's kind of funny. He wasn't even the top rusher on Clemson. Mm-hmm. There was another guy that was ahead of him, but he seemed, like a very multi-purpose back, and caught the ball, and his running was good. He did catch a lot of passes for a college running back. Like in 2022, he caught 38, and last year he caught 31. Mm-hmm. Those are pretty significant numbers and stuff like that. So he had 167 carries last year, 210 the year before, and he did play, and he's had a lot of usage. He had 150 carries in 2021. He's nothing. There's nothing that jumps out at you when you watch it and you go, yeah, he's a good college football player. He's 5'11", 210, played on a big Power 5 team, and he got the usage. So, he could be one of those guys, it's like, he's all right. He gets drafted, he goes to training camp, and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we see him in October, November because of injuries. He's playing in a game and he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
He could be one of those guys. So.
Yeah. And he's definitely, someone's going to fall in love with him, in my opinion. Maybe take him a round higher than we expect type of thing. And he's just kind of, to me, he fits today's NFL in terms of just the guy can do everything. Like he could probably return kicks if he wanted to. I think he did actually in college there. He had 7 kick returns, so about just under 1 a game. But he can do everything, and if the right team gets him, the Miami type, the San Francisco type of where they just say, all right, we're going to use this guy, we're going to give him 4 or 5 targets a game, we're going to give him 8 carries a game, and line him up in different formations and stuff. So he's not, like you said, he's not super explosive or anything like that. But yeah, he could just be one of those where he just kind of fits. He fits the team and it just works, So,
by the way, there's a lot of NFL teams that are going to need running backs.
Yeah.
Each team, on game day, I think they carry at least 3 of them that I know of. I don't know if it's 4, but if you just go down the list and you think, who they have last year and what's the status this year, there's a number of teams that are, that are going to need running backs. So where do they get them from? They're going to get them from, because they wear out so quickly in the NFL, they're going to have to draft some of these guys. So,
yeah, for sure. And then our last guy is Jalen Wright from Tennessee. Another guy that's just very super intriguing. We keep saying it. Like last year, it was like if Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs, and if you want to throw like Charbonnet or Achane in there, if one of those 4 guys aren't the top running back in this draft, I'd be very surprised, especially Bijan or Gibbs, right? And that's first season, that's kind of what it's looking like. It's either going to be Bijan or Gibbs is the best running back from that draft class. This one, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jonathan Brooks, if it's Bucky Irving, if it's Braylon Allen, if it's, or maybe even this guy, Jalen Wright. I don't know. He's an interesting one. He's really nice in open space. I see projected 40 time in the low 4.3s. So he could run a really fast 40, which someone's going to fall in love with. He's kind of slight. I mean, he weighs like 210 is what I'm seeing, but he's 5'11". He just kind of has a slight build to him. So I don't know how much in between the tackles, but he does kind of run violently and just with the ball in his hands, he's just a play. He kind of, again, he reminds me of like a Keaton Mitchell type or an Achane type where it's like, yeah, these guys could take a 60-yard pass to the house or a touch to the house, and I wouldn't be surprised. How many touches is he going to get? I don't know. So, overall thoughts on Jalen Wright?
Yeah, I always first off, I look at measurables, and then I look, okay, who's he play for? Well, Tennessee, Southeastern Conference, that's big time football. Then I kind of look at the guy's career, and this guy's had 3 years at Tennessee, and the last 2 years, 2023 and 2022, he's had some usage, about his Tennessee's kind of a pass first school. So he's had, almost 140 carries, 150 carries those 2 years. So he's had a lot of use. His numbers look pretty good. Yards per carry, 6 yards and 7 yards per carry. He even played his freshman year. So he looks, he's played big time football and he's done pretty well. If he's running, did you say 4.3?
I saw 4.31 potentially.
Jeez.
Yeah.
4.31. That's pretty
fast.
It's pretty good. So if he's running that, somebody's going to give this guy a shot and stuff like that. So he's got some numbers. Again, I know a lot of people they don't have time to sit and watch the combine and stuff like that, but you want to get better at Dynasty, you want to get an edge, just do a little homework on some of these guys. Don't go by. There'll be plenty of Dynasty mock drafts and stuff like that. So, and it's not like Mike said, it's not 1 through 10 or 1 through 12. It's It's the guys in the second, the third, the fourth round. You can get the players. So that's what we're trying to help you do here.
Everyone who plays Dynasty is going to know who Caleb Williams and Marvin
Oh,
Harrison
absolutely.
and Rome Odunze and even probably these top couple backs that go. Not many people are they're just gonna look at maybe where Sleeper or whatever platform you play on where they rank the rookies. And so yeah, do your homework for sure. Yeah, this guy, I even saw potentially a high school. This is from a hand timed 40, a 4.28, but that's timing from the hand, so there's going to be some inaccuracies. But yeah, this guy's he's fast, so he's going to fit Jalen Wright. That is, he's going to fit like probably a zone running scheme. There's two main run schemes in football. It's the zone and then the power counter types, right? Where you're pulling linemen, the Derrick Henry type of players that they play more of a power counter type of scheme, whereas like you want the fast guys who can kind of wait patiently behind an offensive line, kind of playing that zone one, and they find that hole and just hit it. So that's what San Francisco, Miami, teams like that run. But yeah, he seems to be potentially fitting that one. So yeah, good fit for him wherever he goes. He's going to get drafted if he runs a low 4.3 in the 40s. So
absolutely, he's going to get drafted.
Yeah, someone will covet that. So yeah, we'll be back. There's still some more names out there, that potentially could be drafted again. Like I'd say, 15 to 20 running backs every year, maybe more, get drafted. So at least half the teams are drafting a running back somewhere, I would say. But yeah, any last word on these group of running backs? Who is like just maybe your number one guy? Again, we're sitting here January 25th. A lot's going to change.
Bucky Irving.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And who's like someone you like who's, maybe at the bottom of this list, but you could easily see them kind of making a jump. Is it Estime?
It's either Estime or the guy we just looked at from Texas, or not from Texas.
Tennessee.
Jalen
Wright, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Bucky Irving a lot too. So we might be fighting in our dynasty drafts. We'll see where he goes. But yeah, that is it. We're going to wrap it up there, and we'll be back looking at more running backs, moving on to receivers. We already have our quarterbacks out there as we get closer to the combine. So as always, like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys next time.